Marketing Podcast. My name is Ashley Petrochenko. I'm the VP of Brand Marketing here at Cardinal. I'm filling in for Alex Membrillo today as host. Joining me today is Kim Craven, the Director of Field Marketing at Ethos Veterinary Health. Kim, welcome to Ignite.
Thank you for having me.
Hey. Well, before we dig into the conversation, I thought we could maybe share a little bit about your background and the work that you do at Ethos.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I am the Director of Field Marketing at Ethos. So in my role, I lead the marketing strategy for our portfolio of veterinary hospitals across 140 hospitals, just making sure that each location shows up strongly in the community, that we are driving those visits and making sure that we're optimizing their brand in the local community.
Great. And you've been in the veterinarian space for a while now, but you also have a history in publishing, I thought, too, which I thought was really interesting. Maybe you can tell everyone a little bit about that transition and how you found yourself here today.
I do. So I've been in the veterinary health space for about 6 years now. Most of my career has been in publishing, both commercial publishing and academic publishing. And I just, really, like a lot of people do, needed a change at that time a few years ago and was really interested in the vet space. And a position opened up at a company called Compassion First Pet Hospitals. It was local and seemed like something interesting and fun, and here we are, joined a new space, and I really love it.
I love it.
It's not as different as people might think. Managing a couple thousand authors a year and managing marketing for a few hundred veterinary hospitals is actually more similar than you might think.
You're chasing cats anywhere, right?
Yeah.
I love that. And then marketing is so much about communication and understanding your audience. And it's very much, I can see the parallels of what you're doing, that how that informs how you connect to pet owners today. So that's really cool.
Absolutely. And, when you're working with authors, you're really working with their individual works. You're working with them as a brand. It's very similar to working with one of our veterinary hospitals. We are part of a larger company, but we're working with them as their local brand and working to make sure that we are really promoting them within their community and their market, same as we would do with any author.
That's so cool. So let's talk about that a little bit. So Ethos has over 140 locations right across the U.S. Maybe you can share a little bit about, you were just saying, the brand architecture model. There's a national brand, there's a local brand. Kind of how are you sorting that all out and going to market?
Absolutely. So Ethos is our national brand. That is mostly what we would consider a B2B brand at this point. So mostly around candidates, around the industry space. On the local level, because we really did start with an M&A model, we do retain the local branding of all of our locations. They had great, strong, reliable brands in the market. So we didn't want to change that. They really had a connection, all of those hospitals, with their community. And we wanted to continue to grow that connection within their community and not change that up too much since they had strong brands. So we do manage quite a few. It's a little under 140 different brands within the market across the US and Canada.
Yeah, that's a lot. And that's something, most of our listeners are coming from the healthcare space, and they deal with similar challenges. When you have these roll-ups, you have all of these different local brands. So I think, while we're talking about animal health here, there's a lot of parallels between the two, the same challenges. We're going to dig into that next. So, you have 140 different brands that you're managing. That's a lot. So how does that kind of trickle down into your digital strategy, your Google ads, your SEO, your websites? Give everyone a picture of what that looks like in reality.
Yeah. So, it's definitely a challenge, but there are benefits to it. So every hospital really has unique services. They have a unique competitive landscape. They're in a unique market. So we do develop a strategy and shape that plan based on their market, their priorities, and what's going to work best for that particular hospital. So we really optimize everything for the local market. The benefit is, though, that we roll up to 140 locations, so we internally have a lot of learnings, so we can benefit from that scale. We know it's working in one market and are able to quickly pivot and test in another. So I think a lot of our locations really do benefit from the best of both worlds, that they have that hyper-local optimization, but we are really learning from other markets pretty quickly and understanding what works and what doesn't work so that we can do the best we can for all of our 140 locations.
Let's talk about the team a little bit. So I kind of know you have a very large team, because I think all of them signed up for Scaling Up, which I was like, oh my gosh, another one from Ethos, and we were really happy. So I love the desire to learn that you're cultivating at Ethos. That was fantastic. So talk about when you're trying to operationalize across all of these locations, how does the team structure support that, and kind of how are you just making it possible efficiently?
It really is about balancing the central versus the local or regional in our case.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have marketing managers that are assigned to various regional locations and portfolios. So we have groups of field marketing managers who are working one-to-one with all of their hospitals to really understand their market in depth, understand their priorities, and understand what's going to work for them and what they need to do to grow. At the same time, we have a central team. So we have design and digital and essential teams so that we have those subject matter experts that can help those on the ground. So we really can come together and put together strong plans that are going to drive the business. Each of our marketing managers are working, like I said, closely with our hospitals. They're creating a strategy and putting together a plan that's going to work for that particular location. But they have the benefit of tapping into our centralized teams to understand what is best practice here. So say I want to grow visits in ER. They then are going to work with our digital team to understand, okay, these are the channels we need to be in. Here's the spend that we need to have for each of these locations. And here's what we're going to do for our go forward. And then they can supplement that understanding on the ground. Hey, what are the community events that are going on? What are the things that we can do to get our name out into the community?
So that national team is really helping to share those learnings that they are finding in one region and helping to make sure that it's trickling across all of the different regional locations and sharing it with those on-site managers.
Absolutely. And those subject matter experts in the center are looking at all the data to say, hey, we know what's working here. This ad is really performing really well. Here's where we need to maybe invest a little bit more. Here's where we need to optimize our bids a bit more. Here's what we know works or doesn't work with creative. Here's what the audience looks like. So they're able to look at that and provide those recommendations pretty quickly back to the site and to the marketer.
What have you guys been, AI is what everyone has talked about all of 2025. So I think that's some kind of, are there learnings that you're seeing, that you got kind of like across the board starting to adapt towards and try to get the recommendation on AI?
Absolutely. Definitely something that is on our 2026 focus list is optimizing for AI. Obviously, we know that is the way things are going. I think, many of our sites are actually set up for success when we look at AI optimization online, especially for AEO, because we do have a lot of content on our websites. We know people are Googling symptoms. They're, my cat is throwing up. What do I do? My dog is limping. Where do I go? And our content on our sites is already set up in a good way to take advantage of a lot of that. So really our focus in 26 is to continue to optimize that and take advantage of that across all of our locations.
With the rise of AI, consumers aren't sure if what they're reading is true or not. And we're seeing that what wins in the AI world is authentic content that is coming directly from doctors, veterinarians. Can you tell us a little bit, how are you working with your teams to create that content to capture that authentic voice?
What performs best is content coming from the local sites. So things like patient stories, case studies, those are the things that for us perform best and are really what are going to highlight the local hospital themselves. So we want that authenticity. Obviously, we use AI to help us along, creating some of our educational content as a starting point and to help refine what's been written. But it's really important that for those local locations that they are authentic in their voice. So we really work with the doctors to put together case studies. Patient stories are gold for us, both across social media, online and even in traditional media stories as well, because that telling the story, that's so important, is to tell the story and not just tell people, hey, we're the best, but show them what we can do and show them those patient outcomes. And I think that's
anyone
important.
Can say they're the best. Anyone can say, I'm the best. I do all the things, I'm the best, come to us, but you have to back it up with real proof, and nothing beats a patient story.
And those patient stories, it shows it, but it also, people can relate to that too. It's a lot harder to just see a list of what we do and know when you're going to need it. But when you see that patient story and you see that positive outcome, it really, one, you help gain that trust, but you can also see yourself as, as a pet parent in that same situation. And you can actually relate to it a lot more. So it's really important that we have that. And again, the authenticity of that local content, every market is a little bit different and timing is a little bit different for everything. So, we do need to make sure that even as we are creating content for locations, we're keeping in mind seasonality in different markets. Heat stroke is going to come at a different time in Texas than it is in Maine. Those are things that we need to keep in mind, and some of those stories and what are the potential things that we're going to, pet parents may have to face. So for example, rattlesnake bites in certain markets is something really big. So we really want to optimize for those particular regions and locations that are going to be dealing with that. And again, not just kind of push out that content or patient stories in areas where that's just not
It
relevant to
doesn't
them
make,
at all.
yeah, I mean, you have the national brand and resources, but you have to have that local nuance. Otherwise, you're just going to be ignored and very confused. The people, like the audience is going to be very confused, like rattlesnakes. This makes no sense to
Absolutely,
me.
absolutely. And what's great is, again, to your point of working with the local doctors and the local team, is we have that resource. We have
Yeah.
folks that are working in market in those communities and are part of those communities and can speak authentically to that. So where we can take advantage of that, absolutely we should, and amplify their voices.
Okay. So beyond the acquisitions, you also are launching new facilities across the U.S. Can you talk a little bit about that strategy and how you are positioning them in the market?
Absolutely. So we do launch new locations and have relocated some of our hospitals. Organic growth is really important, and we have a lot of locations that are just continuing to grow and continue to outgrow their spaces. So we've had about 7 so far this year of relocations or new locations that have opened up. And anytime that we go into a market, we really look at, okay, what do we need to really launch effectively in that market? What's different about that community? And what are the things that we need to really think about, from naming to how we're going to go to market in that community, I should say. So, and our go to market is everything from making sure that we have those connections on the ground, making sure that we're working with the local chamber of commerce, that we're partnering with local businesses, with the local referral community, but then also from a digital perspective, making sure that they have a website that is live and ready to go before they actually open up, and making sure that we are talking about the location on social, digital, web to start getting people excited that it's coming.
And you're doing that like weeks, months in advance to kind of build up that momentum?
Absolutely. We usually have about a 6 to 9 month plan to launch going into market. So, and that's really getting together, what does that brand look like? What is the strategy in that particular market? And then starting to set up and seed that marketing several months out, emails out to the referral community, setting up that social media presence and making sure that we're gaining that following, and then also just letting them know that this is coming, and the benefits, lots of behind the scenes photos, videos, when we can let them see the progress of that particular space being built, but also what's behind the scenes. I think one of the things that we hear a lot about from pet parents is part of their anxiety is they can't see what's behind those doors. They sort of hand their pet over and they don't necessarily see what's behind in the double doors a lot of times as they go back with the veterinarians. So we do try to provide some view of what's behind those doors and show them the space and show them how well their pet will be taken care of, and what that space looks like, to give them a little bit of, put them at ease.
That is like understanding the anxiety. Like, how are you kind of, this is kind of a completely different pivot of like digging into like your pet owner personas. Like, what are the anxieties, the motivations, and how are you kind of how are you finding them? Like, what kind of market research are you doing, or how do you extract that info to inform your marketing, like regional strategies?
Absolutely. And I think there are a couple of things that we do. One is we do have some market research to understand what pet parents are looking for. And we're seeing that shift. We do see a generational shift. We do see a shift in just how people think about their pets. We know that now more and more pets are family. So thinking about that experience, not as just I'm handing my pet over to a veterinarian. A pet is just a thing, but your pet is really a family member. For a lot of people, it's you're taking your child to the doctor, you're taking your pet to the doctor. So
I have fur babies. I have no babies. I just have fur babies.
So it really is, there is that anxiety, especially when people can't see behind the scenes and really know what's going on. So we really do want to put people at ease, especially since we're in the emergency and specialty space. There's definitely a lot of emotion and anxiety when a pet parent has come into one of our hospitals, because a lot of times it's in an emergency situation, or it's in a situation where they're very ill or have had an accident and they don't know what the outcome is going to be, and they don't know what the path forward is going to be. And then there's also the financial concerns around it as well. Unlike human healthcare, pet insurance acts a little bit differently than the healthcare, that we all have. So there's a financial aspect in the unknown there that people are always a little bit concerned about. So, our job is to be able to tell that story and put people a little bit at ease, again, through some of that storytelling, those patient stories, and give people as much information as we can up front as they're going to make a decision before they walk through those doors. And then really working with our local hospital teams, they're the ones on the front lines. They're the ones that are really doing the great job of putting those pet parents at ease when they walk through the doors. So
Yeah.
our job is to get them to the door there, but they're the ones who are doing that hard work and putting them at ease.
I think there's so much like, the parallels between like human health and pet health. It's the unknown is it's scary. So how can we as marketers alleviate that through the very early touch points when they're on search and Googling and going to Reddit and reading comments and stories and trying to figure out, like, if you can show up sooner and be that resource that someone can trust, like, you're going to be the preferred brand. You're going to be where they go to when they're actually like have an emergency. They'll like, oh, this is who took care of me when I was spiraling and like scrolling in my bed trying to figure out like what's going on. It's the same thing for human health. Like, being that trusted resource is so important. So I love that.
Absolutely. And engaging in reviews and feedback is so important as well. Yeah. So, we know that people are Googling. They're Googling symptoms. They are, they're going to Google to find out, should they go to an emergency vet? Where is the nearest emergency vet? So not only do we want to show up first, but we want to make sure they're going to look at those reviews. They're going to look at that Google score, making sure that we're working with the location and we have a score and we have reflected there all of the great work that we do. So even responding to those reviews is just so key for us and engaging in them to continue to improve our business.
Yeah, if you ignore them, it's just going to be all of the negative Nancy's, and we do not want that. Let's talk about that digital front door a little bit. Like, how are you kind of optimizing it so that when they are going to Google, they get to your Google business profile? How are you optimizing it so there's the least amount of friction possible so that they can get the information that they need, they can get into the appointment? Like, what's that look like for you?
Absolutely. So, one of the things that's obviously most important for us is ensuring that all of our sites are mobile friendly and mobile optimized with that call button really on that site very, very visibly. So we know that people are starting with Google. Some of them are going to pop over to the site. But from an emergency perspective, we want to make sure they don't have to dig through a whole bunch of different pages to try to find those directions or to try to call and get more information. So that's obviously first and foremost, but also making sure that we have robust Google profiles. Search is incredibly important for us, paid search as well as organic search. So making sure that we're showing up at top of all of those searches. Online booking is a little bit new for the specialty and emergency space, but definitely something that we're testing. And I think is something that's going to be the way forward. Eventually, a lot of our current communication is via phone call. Though we're also testing with chat in a lot of locations as well. But I think chat and online booking are definitely a way that we see forward to ease that a bit.
So right now, is there like a central call contact center, or is it going to each location? It handles their appointmenting?
Yeah, it does go to each location. So locations are handling that locally. And, we do work with them to make sure that they are, I wouldn't say that everybody has the same script, but they have the talking points and really understand and have training to understand how to handle some of those calls and make sure that they're getting to the right place as quickly as possible. So, if somebody's calling in with an emergency, making sure they know where to go, in some cases, taking some of their information on the phone, while they're calling and they're on their way. So when they get to that front door, they don't have to worry about filling out a ton of paperwork. And their pet will be seen and triaged right away, and making sure that they're at ease about that and putting them at ease about the emergency experience from that first touch point is really important.
Okay, Kim, let's wrap this up now. 2 more questions for you. One, let's start with, what is something that you just wish marketers would stop doing in 2026? Like something that does not work and that you'd recommend everyone just moves on from?
I think in terms of something that they would just stop doing, I have to say, I think it is starting with the foundation, starting with building that foundation and not chasing every shiny new toy. That can be one of my pet peeves. I think, it's great to test and pilot and innovate, and we absolutely should. But doing that before you've actually built a really good foundation for your marketing planning, for your site, for everything, is just a recipe for disaster. And doing it without a plan is also a recipe for disaster. So that, building that foundation and then testing, trying, and innovating, as opposed to doing it the other way and chasing that shiny new toy.
Yeah, the shiny toy is like cats. I'm obviously a cat mom here, but I definitely are chasing it in the wrong directions. And, if you forget about the foundations, you're just going to be always playing catch up, always chasing.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah. So you definitely don't want to be chasing that shiny new toy, but keep your eye on it, because it's something that we're probably going to want to pilot. And innovate, but make sure that you have a strong foundation in place before you go off chasing that shiny new toy.
Cool. So on the tail end of that, what is one thing that you are kind of watching and you want to focus on in 2026?
I think in 2026, one we already touched on a little bit is AI and how we really optimize for AI, because I think that's incredibly important and is really going to help separate us as we go forward. I think it's just going to be so important for 2026 and beyond. And then attribution. I think that is something that everybody is looking at every year, but really making sure that we are able to have a good attribution model in place and make sure that we continue to optimize our attribution, because again, that's so important, both from our understanding what's working, what's not working, and scaling as well.
Yeah, across the board, that's what we've been hearing, like the understanding ROI, what marketing's impact is, how that contribute is everyone's focus on in 2026 across healthcare. That is, the economy has been tough this past couple of years, and I think we're all feeling the squeeze. So trying to figure out building that foundation of data that you can actually make those decisions and understanding is where everyone's going next year. So
yeah,
I love this.
Absolutely. And we all know that budgets are not infinite. So the only way that we're really going to be able to work with what we have is to understand what is working, what isn't working. And if we don't have good attribution models in place, we're kind of flying blind. So important.
We don't want to find blind.
Focus for us.
That's awesome. Well, this has been a great conversation, Kim. Thank you so much for joining Ignite. If our listeners want to connect with you, where can they find you?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Kimberly Craven.
Great. Well, thank you again for joining us, and everyone have a great day. Bye.
Thank you so much.